Hey, it's your boy. Well, your boy's minus one. Al is here. He's just behind the scenes working on the doobly doos. So it's I'm stuck with Dean today. It's me and Dean. And before I even get started on our topic, please be sure to give us a follow and subscribe either here on Twitch if you can. If you can't, we still love you. It just helps us out a great deal, and we really appreciate it if you could. Tonight's topic is Gods of the Fall by Bruce Cordell. We've, our audience on YouTube has always requesting that we do more walkthroughs. So, we decided, hey, we're going to walk through every single of the setting books. And this week's book is Gods of the Fall. So, Dean, could you take it away?
Well, we're going to dive right in. But before we do that, let me just read a quick summary of Gods of the Fall. So, and this is straight from the MCG website. The gods are dead. Now it's your turn. There was a time when the gods walked the world. Their magic pervaded the earth and the sky. From their mystical realm of Elentar, they brought plenty and pestilence. They judged the living and the dead. Their rule was absolute. Then Elentar fell to earth like a vengeful star, sparking cataclysm and plunging the world into a dark age. The gods are gone, but their works remain, scattered and broken. The world struggles under the yoke of murder, slavery, and corruption. Dark things have squirmed free of their divine prisons, and even the afterlife has become a realm of nightmares. But a power has awoken against the darkness. A divine spark struck in the hearts of new gods in the making. You have this spark, the seed of godhood within you. Can you restore what was broken before the world vanishes forever into darkness? Can you claim a place for yourself in the heavens? Now let's dive right in.
Before we dive in, I just want to give a disclaimer. We're going to be very nostalgic about Gods of the Fall, because if anybody has seen any of our videos, you would know that me and Al met Dean while playing Gods of the Fall. It's the first Cypher system game we ever played.
We all played together.
Like 3 or 4 years ago. So it holds a special place in all our hearts. So that's just this disclaimer. We're some Gods of the Fall fanboys.
And let's be honest, Anthony, it was 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years September, because you got what's the name? Started in August, and then in September I joined you guys, and that was our first game it was October. It was actually Halloween night. I remember it vividly because I was on my way to work. I was working nights. Yeah. And I gamed at work that night.
Yeah, I was always attracted to Gods of the Fall. To me, before we even get into it, to me, I know it's a fantasy setting, but to me, it was always like, what if supers existed in the fantasy world? Even though they use the gods, like the idea of full gods. But to me, it was always like, hey, this is a fantasy setting with supers, so I'm all for that. So, I was on that as soon as it came out. I was excited to run it. And when we first started the CU Discord, I ran a ton of different Gods of the Fall one-shots, and Children Should Play with Dead Things was one I ran a lot and was a game that attracted your attention.
Yeah, like I said, I run a lot of Gods of the Fall myself. Gods of the Fall was kind of the go-to before we had God Forsaken, for a toolkit. Gods of the Fall was the standard. And, even now with Tallest and God Forsaken and soon Diamond Throne will be there, Gods of the Fall is still going to be a staple. It just adds so many strong elements that can be adapted, So, and you want to get us right in there with chapter 1?
All right, so if we had to check chapter 1, it's Welcome to the Afterworld. This chapter basically, it introduces the reader to the concepts of, the Gods of the Fall, the setting itself. It breaks down the setting, of course. It gives you details on how the book is constructed. The usual do. You need a CSR to play. it gives you how to customize your gods. The section talks about the pieces inherent divinity, the bleakness of the afterworld, which is
The land of the dead.
Yeah, it's the post world after the great cataclysm that happened. The eclipse that made half the planet, or is it half the planet or half the continent is covered?
It's just it's the Nightlands. It's the one place called the Nightlands. And basically what happened is there's a rogue moon they call Nod that tracks perfectly with the sun and keeps this place in a perpetual twilight. So once again, it's just so many cool elements that Bruce built into this that makes it, so rich, evocative, and compelling. It pulls you in. At least it pulled me in. It pulled you in. It pulled you out. It pulled us all in. So,
I also like how in this section he talks about the different classes of, the classes of people. Like what station you are in life in this world, and why does it matter? Because this world does have slavery. So you could play a totally different station. You could be an indentured servant. You could, so it had several different religions and languages, and they break that down. I also love the map. This is one of the most beautiful maps, one of the best Cypher maps that came out. So I love the map. I wish they had more maps like this, to be honest. So I don't know who the cartographer was, but they killed it with this map.
Yeah, it is a great map. And another thing that this section does is it sets the tone completely, where, if you play an older character, and that's the interesting part about it, is you don't necessarily have to be a teenager or something like that to find your spark. Your divine spark can happen. You could be, you could play a 60, 70-year-old person who, their spark happens. These people are old enough to remember when the gods were there,
Oh, so Dean, what is a spark?
The spark, it's basically a spark of divinity. And that's what it explains, that you have a divine spark within you. And as a tier 1 character, it's activated. And you are now on the path to becoming a god. At this point, you're a godling. Think of yourself, as like, Theseus or Perseus. You're an epic hero. You have some divine gifts, if you will, as opposed to just having to find magic items or so on and so forth.
I always wanted to run a one-shot where people were hunting down someone that had a divine spark and was evil, but they weren't necessarily. I know it's not utilizing all the rules of Gods of the Fall, but it was utilizing the setting in a real cool. So you could have like godforsaken traditional fantasy characters, but their mission was to hunt down.
Make them reconciliators.
Yeah.
We make them.
But the reconciliators were a little on the evil side, but yeah.
Yeah, they are a little evil too, but I mean, it could just be that you were hired by, and here's the thing. There are certain terms that we are all familiar with from fantasy and so on and so forth, but they're used differently. So for example, I was getting ready to make mention of being hired by a dragon. Dragons in this game are very powerful sorcerers, very powerful magic wielders, and they don't want gods to come back because the gods put limitations on the power they could wield, the things that they could do. There were gods of different domains and so on and so forth. So these things put restrictions on them. Now these sorcerers have come into power, and they don't want gods back. So me making the statement about reconciliators, we're going to move forward into that, but just to put it in a bit of perspective,
The best way to put it is like atheism kind of is the religion of choice in this world, which is actually pretty cool, because the majority of people don't believe in the God. So that's pretty cool. It's also worth mentioning, even though I don't necessarily know if it's in this chapter, but there are several races that are not, not the norm in traditional fantasy. You have like a Sleen type race. They like lizard people. Of course, you got goblins, orcs, trolls, and stuff like that. You have Terreans and you have humans. So
Right.
it has the traditional fantasy races plus a few extras that are pretty cool.
Right. You
So
know,
if you
and
want to, okay, D.
I was just going to say a couple of other things before we move on to chapter 2 to just give you the elements of the world. Ciphers in this particular one are because this was before subtle ciphers were a thing, and everything
I
was
think
like.
they break that down in the mechanics section, don't they? Though
I think they talk about it, but I was just going to say, you're going to hear us talk about, it's basically pieces of heaven. It's artifacts and things like that from Elentar that fell to Earth.
Essentially, chapter 1 is an overview of the world. This
Correct.
world is rich, and I posted this on Twitter and Facebook today, but it's extremely unique to me. I think what attracted me to this book was traditionally me and Al tend to not so much Dean. Dean's more of a setting guy than me and Al are, but traditionally me and Al tend to we usually look at mechanics first or what's being added. But Gods of the Fall was the exact opposite for me. I was attracted to the setting. First, before I even saw the mechanics, which are hella cool and we're going to get to, the setting is what really hooked me. And when we did our video on the top 10 settings of MCG all time, this was in my top 3 that I voted for.
Mine as well. I mean, you know what it is for me? Like I said, settings for me are always a big thing. And I don't know for anybody else, but just to kind of put it in perspective, settings can always be inspiration. And that's what I like about this setting. This is one of those settings that I could almost run without tweaking in any way because like Anthony said, it's so rich. It's so much going on, but it did inspire things to happen. And we'll get into that when we start talking about some of the other stuff. But, with that being said, just so you put it in perspective, this is a broad overview of what the setting is all about. It talks about the people, it talks about the new atheism, it talks about animals, creatures, climates, everything that's found, in the Afterworld and the Nightlands. So, The
second book basically breaks down the setting by district and by, it starts off with which the largest of the metropolis, Corso, and there's a bunch of city states, and it's covered in darkness, and it's the New York City of this world, for lack of a better term. It's it's where the big cities are, it's where the rich people.
It's Waterdeep, it's Tallest, it's it's all those places, but it's a lot darker. And that's something that people should take into account as well. This setting is a lot darker than most fantasy settings, because it is rather apocalyptic if you really think about it.
It's called the Nightland for a reason.
And then of course chapter 2 takes on the onus of basically it's a short story. It's basically composed to give you a more personal view.
I mean, that's the beginning of chapter 2, Dean.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Chapter 2 is just a short story. Chapter 3 breaks it down into the. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dean. You're absolutely right.
So, and that's one of the coolest parts about it too. There's a lot of literature, if you will, a lot of story to really put you in the headspace to be in this world. In the world, again, like we said, another thing that you should know is magic is a real thing. Everybody, they say, even the lowest person might know a simple spell, to make the crops grow good, or something to make sure the milk doesn't sour from the cow or whatever. But some utilitarian ideology, but divine magic isn't a thing.
Yagos asked, is it Dark Sun Doc or Goblin Slayer Doc?
No.
Particularly the Nightlands, if I had to pick something that I could compare it to, picture Mezzo Baranza from Dritz Duodern. It's that sort of dark. It's you know it's a bunch of cities in total darkness with a ton of dark magic being and powerful beings controlling everything behind the scenes like puppeteers pulling strings.
And if you don't know what those are, and you're more of a traditionalist, say if you ever read Elric, it's Melnibone dark. You know, it's that level of twistedness, if you will. You know.
Good, dude.
So I guess we can move right into chapter 3, and it's the Nightland.
Yeah, you know? Well, I was already at chapter 3, so.
Yeah, so we'll move right in there. So the Nightland encompasses all the land from the Sea of Shadows to the Verge, east of the Ruinscape, and west of the Sunwash Aravan mountain range. You know, the most significant city, as Anthony was saying earlier, was Corso. But there's also Chrysirich, Hornscar, Iron City, Maharigan, and Samara. You know, so all of those places encompass the Nightlands. And then these are the places that we were talking about before that are basically in perpetual darkness. It's a perpetual eclipse here. Because of this rogue moon that popped up out of nowhere. And there's like story stuff that goes along with that too. But that portion of the Nightland is really, it's pretty cool as hell. You know, like I said, and chapter 3 talks about all of the Nightland. It gives you enough information for you to, you know, shape what kind of adventures you want. There's of course, there's the most information on Corso, like Anthony was saying, you know.
Yeah, it's basically like a darker version of Totus style city. And once again, they provide you with some awesome information and some absolutely gorgeous maps. Look at that map. The cartography in this book is crazy.
And the artwork for it is, well, as we all know, MCG always gives us great artwork. You know, we can't even not talk about that either, because the artwork is so inspirational, you know, and the fact that what I really dig about, even like the picture that is over my shoulder here, it's great because they do so many different things, you know. When I say different things or different styles of things, you know, you see what you would consider like a traditional Greek god, but you also see, you know, they have things that would you'd recognize from wuxia films, you know, the you know, crazy, if you've ever watched any crazy Asian martial arts movies and stuff like that, you see stuff that will remind you of you know, the idea of the Arabian Nights and so on and so forth. So basically, you're are inspired to go whatever direction you want, and your gods can be quite interesting. You know, I want to talk about some of that when we get further in, though.
Yeah, I definitely see multiple inspirations for this. So basically, the Nightlands is, I think, where the majority of people either start their adventure or are the antagonists of your adventure. You know, the villains are coming out of the Nightlands. I know I use the Nightlands a lot as
absolutely,
person you're trying to escape. Yeah, before we even go, because there's certain fractions that do not like that people are coming, you know, getting this spark of powers, you know, these deity abilities, and are trying to prevent that. So it's very easy to create a villain that's just basically out to get you. And just before we move into the next chapter, they explain each district of the city of Corso and all these minor cities, and they give you a venture hook and ideas if you were to start a game or visit this place, stuff that you could use. So it's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing real quick about all these places also have something unique about them. You know, there's a unique aspect. Anthony mentioned earlier about the slavery and stuff like that. And these are things that, as a game master and as players, you definitely should have a session 0 about, because they can be triggers for people. I mean, it is a tough subject in certain cases. So it's always good to have a conversation. I want that to be, put out there. And they even make mention of, this was before they had wrote the PDF for safety tools, but they do mention it, they do talk about it. And it's just something I wanted to bring up, make sure everybody's on the same sheet of music and how you want to handle those tough things, because it is a lot of prejudice and so on and so forth.
I think they actually touch on it later on in this chapter in this book too, as well.
Yes.
He also gave you a ton of like GM tools. He actually wrote out some songs based on the dead gods that you could print up and give to your players. Or if you have a good singing voice, not me, but if you have a good singing voice, you could attempt to sing it yourself, sing them yourself for the players. It's pretty cool.
I'll just, I'll be the bard, and, I'll do the spoken word music in the background, and, but I'm not singing anything. So, that's chapter 3. Now, chapter 4 moves into the Ruinscape. And that's another interesting place. That's the shining Cavazel, the golden center of civilization, is gone, and leaving you with the Ruinscape in its place. And it's like the central feature. It's the Eye of Elantar. This is where heaven smote the earth. This is where basically the I guess you could say, if it was Mount Olympus, where the peak of the mountain hit the ground. It shattered into a million pieces. It petrified, there's pieces of petrified divinity all over the place. And the impact tore a massive, it's a massive tear out of the coast.
Essentially, Dean, we'll have to explain. The heaven fell.
Right.
To put it in layman's terms, just picture you had a pantheon of gods, and the entire heaven fell onto your plane, and now the rubbles and ruins exist in the same plane that the mortals exist on.
Right. And there's like this never-ending vortex, 100-mile-hour, hundreds of miles of land splintered. The cracks lead down into crevices where the ruins of earlier and completely forgotten civilizations can be found. There's the 5 deeps, which is buried layers that hold ruins of very distinctly different in nature. And each deep is tens of thousands of years older than the one lying before it. So it's like I said, the lore is so layered and rich. It's crazy, because even when they're giving you game information, they're also building upon the lore. This book is I can't say it enough, that how much stuff is in there.
Here's the part of the book where if you want to run a dungeon delve, where you'll start, you either start your adventures or leave your party to this area. Here's where not only do you have like the terrain danger, here's where you could start adding in the non-humanoid beasties, elementals, waskasas, giant spider, all the traditional D&D-esque style monsters. Here's where you could start throwing them in at.
And you can pull other things in there too, some of the more otherworldly stuff, if and it just depends on how you want to do it. Jinn and genies and, Asimir and everything, you could pull all of that kind of stuff from these places. You could, tiefling, if you wanted to bring them into the game,
One thing I loved about the Ruinscape when I first started as a player and running it, is that when you're in the Ruinscape, compasses don't work. So it's really hard to navigate anywhere. So, we had a lot of games where, we'll have someone say, oh, I know how to find my way back. And I'm like, how would you find your way back? Oh, I have a compass, or I left a trail. And well, guess what? That's gone now. You're lost.
It was kind of funny. I ran a game one time that somebody actually played a character who had that was part of their divinity, that they had an unerring sense of direction. And it was nice to use the Ruinscape because, yeah, they had an unerring sense of direction. They could always get to the back to the last spot they were in the Ruinscape, but they could never necessarily find their way out. It was kind of cool. So that's how I played it, you know. And it was basically they had to become more powerful in order to overcome, you know, the crazy magic that was in the Ruinscape because it was affecting their divinity, since it, of course, was where, you know, heaven fell. So cool stuff that you could do.
Yeah, the Ruinscape is essentially the Savage Lands. The, you know, you went from, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not 100% sure, but I think Samora is the closest way you could get out from the Nightlands to the Ruinscape. I'm pretty sure it is. Right?
Yeah.
You go through Samora into the Ruinscape, and it's just desolate, destruction, wild. You know, there's a couple of towns scattered throughout the map, but they all long distances away, and it's, you know, fighting your way through all these trials and tribulations to get from town to town. So it's really fun to play.
This would be a perfect place to, you know, use the Ruin engine or the Ruin deck from Jade Colossus.
Yep.
That would help you out so much to build your dungeons and so on and so forth, and the ruins and stuff.
And
Just
also the salvage rules from Discovery and Destiny could also be
oh, absolutely. You could definitely pull that in too. You know, but you would just have to switch it over to it being that, you know, somebody's a master crafter crafting magic items or something, you know.
Yeah, like I said, this setting is like, we could actually break down, but we want you to read the book itself because we're not going to do it justice, just talking off the top of our head. But it's a rich, I mean, Bruce, you know, Bruce, when it comes to lore, he's top notch, he's phenomenal. So, you know, he was going to come through with this. You know, any of the stuff he's done for MCG is no different, especially his lore work is phenomenal. So, yeah, the lore on this, you know, breaking down the Ruinscape is just great.
Yeah. So we move forward into chapter 5, which is the Verge. And the Verge is basically the Nephir infested borderland that hasn't known civilization for thousands of years. You know, and the Nephir are your traditional monsters, goblins, orcs, trolls, you know, and all those creatures that, you know, are considered baddies, like in your traditional D&D games. They're scattered in tribes across this great expanse. They hunt, kill, and, you know, anybody who attempts to cross the wildlands. But groups of Nephir also routinely like transgress in the Kraken mountain range and come into the Nightlands. This was something they didn't do before the fall. You know, now it's just becoming a regular thing. They're encroaching further and further into the Nightlands themselves. So this is another absolutely cool piece, cool tool. Whoever asked about like Dark Sun, you could literally run a Dark Sun style epic through the Verge if you wanted to. You know, you could.
I'm sorry, Dean. Go ahead. Finish.
No, I'm finished. Go ahead.
It's also worth mentioning that each one of these sections that we're talking about, I know we're talking about it 5 minutes and just giving quick, brief descriptions, but each one of these sections, guys, are like 35 to 40 pages each. So you know the lore is deep. You know, each one of these are pretty much, I think the minimum is like 30 pages or 25 pages.
Look at it through this lens. It's rich. There's a lot of stuff there, but if you understand how Monte Cook games are built, they're always built for you to take what's given and add your own twist to it, add your own spin. And I think that's why, like, you know, playing Gods of the Fall when Anthony ran it, or play Gods of the Fall if Al were to run it or whatever, it was always just a great experience, you know, because then when I ran it, you know what, I might riff off of something Anthony did or riff off of something Al did. And then I have my own thing that I wanted to do. But it's all, like Anthony said, it's enough there that you're not floundering, you know.
I always view the Verge as this is the traditional fantasy part of the book. And it's not entirely true, but here's where you have all your fantasy tropes. The only difference is that the humans are not the dominant species in the Verge. you know, they're like the minority. But I always view the Verge as this is the section of the book where, hey, you want to touch on some traditional fantasy, here's what you can do with that.
Well, like I said, when I ran my version of Dark Sun in Cypher, I literally used the Verge as my blueprint, you know, because it's, like I said, a desolate wasteland, you know, it's harsh, it's dangerous, it's all get out, you know.
But it also has vegetation and trees and sunlight.
Yeah. But basically what I did was I turned everything, basically everything was deadly. Yeah, there was vegetation, but the vegetation would even eat you. You know, and it's stuff like this, and they do give you, you know, inspiration for those type of ideas.
Yeah, and everything is based on, I don't think we mentioned this, but a lot of the character base is going to be based off prophecies. So each one of these sections Bruce gives you a different view on how they view the prophecy of what happened. You know, because you got to take into account that not only did they had this big cataclysm event, it's not that long ago. You know, it's about 70 years ago. So of course, different areas are going to view what happened differently and by how it directly affected them. So of course, the inhabitants of the Verge may view the cataclysm differently than people living in Corso.
Right.
So each one of these sections, he gives you different, you know, versions of the prophecy according to where they at, you know, on the map.
And what was it, 7 prophecies or something like that? You know, and each one of the prophecies can take you down a different road. You know, the 7 prophecies are like really cool. You know, and they talk about, you know, basically what's supposed to happen, you know, but again, it's, you know, for everyone to figure it out, you know, just out of care, just to name a couple, there's like the prophecy of law, the prophecy of liberation, the prophecy of salvation, you know, so there's 7 of them. And all of them are also very much story pieces that you can use within your game, or you can just have it as background lore, but it depends on how you want to run your game. So that's just you know, throwing that out there as well.
Chapter 6 is Nod. That's the moon that Dean was talking about earlier.
Right. And Nod basically is like they tell you, it's a rogue moon that jumped up when the when the heavens fell, when the heavens fell. So, you know, you can say whatever it is. We don't know what it is. You know, they don't define it in that sense. They just say this asteroid popped up and it tracks perfectly with the sun, keeping that particular piece of the world in perpetual, you know, perpetual eclipse. And that's why it's called.
You can't visit Nod though. He has it. There's all sorts of, there's a king of Nod. There's all sorts of.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff for it. Yeah.
I mean, you can find out what it is in character.
Right.
It will start it out for you.
Yeah. So there's
Once
that.
again, he breaks down the prophecy for someone from Nod. I mean, I never actually did this, but I was wondering, it would actually be a cool idea if you could play a game or one shot or maybe like a story arc on if you were characters from Nod.
That could be different.
Yeah.
That could be different, but then that means, you know, I don't know if I would let a player do it unless they were really well versed in the setting. Maybe I'd have an NPC come from Nod, and that would be the, you know, the thing to draw the players in. Maybe he's trying to get back or something, you know. But that's just me. Chapter 7 is Soulrest. And it's basically a twisted reflection of the Afterworld. You know, this place, basically, I guess it formed long before the first fall. And as Bruce put it, is during the primordial congruence of the world, you know. And so Soulrest is the realm of the dead, you know, sometimes referred to as hell, you know, though that reference, you know, could be relatively ancient, but souls that lose their ties to their flesh are taken to the soul rest. And living, you know, living creatures aren't really welcome, you know.
But here's what all the cool ass baddies come from. You know, you have the Lords of Hell, and of course he gives you all these pretty cool, like evil entities to bring into your campaign reside in this space. So there's a ton of ideas that you could, you know, mine here to either base the whole campaign on or have the players, you know, travel to or deal with. And he has a ton of different adversaries you could pick from in this section.
Right. Yeah, it's, I mean, and this again, it depends on what you want to do with your game, but you know, you could actually pull in things that you do know too. You know, like Anthony was saying, you could do your own version of Demogorgon, or you could do, you know, Jublix or whoever, you know, if you wanted to pull, you know, these creatures in, because again, it's just an open playground for you to have fun. You know, you could say Soulrest might be a connection to the 9 planes of hell, you know, whatever. It's just an open playground. And that's the biggest thing I like to talk about when we talk about, you know, these particular settings like this, is the inspirations, you know, and what you can do with it, you know, because you're not locked in to do just what's in the book. The book is built to inspire you for more.
Yep. We're not really doing a in-depth infinite construct version of the entire book. We're zooming through it so we could actually get to some of the mechanical benefits that are added to this. So chapter 8 is organizations. You know, here's where what you call it, Dean mentioned all of the reconciliators. You know, those are the people that basically hunt down people with the spark. That's what the characters you're playing, people that have these divine abilities that are starting to manifest. There's several other organizations in this book. There's actually quite a few. The Adherents, the Guild of Sleep. Mm-hmm. And they essentially tell you what they do and how they interact with the world, and how they, more importantly, how they would interact with your characters if you came across them. And that's the sort of stuff that's always great for a GM when you want to run a session, but you don't necessarily have a story concept. I always go to like these sections in books or setting books to spark ideas to, you know, by reading these chapters, something might just stick a chord with me, and I'm like, oh, I could run a whole adventure just based on one organization.
Yeah, it's like really cool, you know, like, because I actually used you know, this section, you know, like with the adherents, and you know, made my own little prophecies on top of prophecies and stuff like that. We had a group one time, and you know, had one guy become, he was the god of mythological monsters. So he started bringing things back into the world like unicorns and, you know, real dragons and so on and so forth. But because he was a good god, he bought like the noble creatures, the ones that you know from mythology that would always be, you know, to kind of help mankind and stuff like that. It was pretty cool, you know. But yeah, like Anthony said, this is an excellent section to be inspired by.
Here's where we start getting into the meat, the nitty gritty of it all, Dean.
Yes, sir. So part 3 is characters, you know, and the first chapter, chapter 9, is DMing deities, you know, and this basically is like a ton of specific setting advice for running a game of gods. You know, what we were talking about before about how to use the 7 prophecy, you know, how to come up with satisfying ways to end the game, you know, even, you know, story arcs, which became a part of the Cypher system rule book, but these were divine story arcs and so much more, you know.
And the 7 prophecies are essentially what the the gods' laws. So you have the prophecy of law, the prophecy of liberation, and they define all of them. Hold on a second, let me pull up the full list.
Is it Yagos 1? I think he likes Kratos.
The prophecy of understanding, the prophecy of salvation, the
prophecy of liberation.
Restoration, and the prophecy of love. That's the 7. No, and the prophecy
Liberation. You forgot liberation and law.
I said both of those.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
And the prophecy of ruin is the 7th.
And then chapter 10 moves on to character types, and this was when first time we were shown the.
Oh, hold on, Steve, before you go into that, I think it's important that you pick a prophecy, right? Where your god is like following one of these. So it's important in character creation to pick one of these prophecies and try to build your PC off of that, because it fleshes out your PC better.
Right. Okay, so, and what Anthony said is absolutely correct. So moving on to chapter 10, though, we start getting into character types. And this was kind of cool because this is the first time we were ever privy to seeing how a type from the Cypher system rulebook could be modified, so to make them unique. So there's the champion, which was based on the warrior, the shaper, which was based on the adept, the destroyer, which was based on the explorer, and the savior, which was based on the speaker. These 4 types, are unique unto themselves, but still steer you in that same kind of direction of the original idea. So,
hold on, before you even do that, Dean, we kind of jumped past some of the important information on chapter 9. Chapter 9 explains what divine shifts are, which are essentially power shifts. So, it breaks down why characters need divine shifts, and divine shifts is what makes them feel godly. So if you don't have, if you're not familiar with the power shift, then chapter 9 is where you will go to get that explanation.
Right.
I know Dean was excited to get into the character creation, but
well, it's just the characters. Again, it's that unique thing with the types. The types are, it was an eye opener back then, because it expanded. It made Cypher system that more expansive, because that was an argument that, we heard a lot of times. Well, you just got 4 types, what about, and people who played D&D and talked about classes and so on and so forth. But this just gave you another insight into the expansive nature and how customization works within the realm and understanding of Cypher system, and of course, playing a champion. And again, with a different, if you had 4 champions in a group, I actually had a group one time with 4 champions, and it was kind of wild because we had 4 champions, but they all had different descriptors and different foci, and they all felt entirely different, which was really, really cool. And it makes, again, it just speaks to this setting, but also Cypher system.
And it's also worth mentioning, like Dean said, these are entirely different types. So when you view Gods of the Fall, you have to view it in the lens like you would Numenera. That I know a champion, which may seem like a warrior type, but they're not exactly the same. Matter of fact, a lot of the abilities are quite different that you get at on the different tier levels in Gods of the Fall than you would have in the original Cypher book. So it's more akin to viewing it like you would Numenera than you would, like, say, Stay Alive or something like that.
Yagos asks, so is it skill based or level based in CU? It's neither. It's concept based. Cyphers.
What he means by that, character creation or the actual game itself?
Yeah, actually, I need a little more clarification because I'm going into the idea of, character and, the game itself. Because
character creation, it's 50% skill based, 50% ability based.
Yeah. Yeah, with the characters, it's skills and abilities. See, D&D is entirely different than the idea of D&D because the average tier 1 character is like is anywhere between a 3rd and 5th level character in D&D. You're very competent starting out in Cypher system. Cypher system deals more in the realm of resource management, but in most cases, the system isn't the driving force, it's the narrative, which is the driving force.
I understand what his question is.
Okay, well, you answer for me.
If what you're referring to from chat, then it's closer to level based, Yagos, than it is skill based. Because you do go from tier to tier, and you do get your additional abilities by tiering up, similar to how in D&D you would get your additional abilities by leveling up. Right? It's Cyberpunk is more like you have your skills and your skills advance over time, but yeah, it's closer to levels. Tiers are not exactly levels like everybody's been mentioning, but it is closer to a level-based system than it is a skill-based system.
Right. Well, no, and that's what I'm saying. I guess the biggest thing with me, and is that I'm trying to get you to kind of flip the lens a little bit and look at it from a different angle, because D&D is great for what it is, and that's where a lot of people come from, is D&D, and we understand that. I guess the biggest thing I could tell you is like, come to the server, man, and play a game with us and experience it for yourself too, But the system is very much narrative by its nature.
Yeah. I mean, just Yago, so it's very similar to D&D. They're both D20 based systems. The only difference is that Cypher system is more resource management,
right,
as a base. As opposed to having static numbers that only lower when you take damage, you actually lowering and raising your numbers yourself by the decisions you make in character, in game.
Exactly.
So it's more resource management than it is, a traditional D20 based game. But character creation does depend on leveling up from tier to tier. I don't know if that really answered your question, but they're very similar in that vein.
Yeah. So, you want to say anything else about character types?
No. What I was going to say is that the 3 character types in here that are provided, 4. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's 4. That was also worth mentioning. The 4 character types here, they all very different. They all they provide a certain, like I can't picture it not having these 4 types. They all give you a totally different style of character to play. From the champion being that, the prototypical fighter, fantasy fighter, paladin, paladin, warrior, barbarian style, to the shaper, the sorcerer.
Well, let's do it this way, Anthony. Do it this way. If you were to look at each of these and you want to look at them as divinity, the champion would be your typical, your Herculeses, your Thors, those Gilgamesh, those characters that are going to get out there and, put a pounding on you. The Shapers would be your characters more like Minerva and, Hera, who use magical manipulations. Your Destroyers are your characters much like Apollo and so on and so forth. If we're looking, or Balder from Norse mythology. Saviors would be again, like speaker types. Those would be those that come down and speak to people. So Frigga from, or Freya from Norse mythology. It's very unique in that sense that it kind of gives you the feeling for what type of gods you want to play. Even though the term destroyer sounds really hardcore, but you could really make some cool trickster gods using destroyers.
I will also say too, the character creation in this has to be remembered that it's pre-revised. So a lot of the tiers don't have the multiple choices that you would get from the revised edition, but that's easily correctable.
Right.
With the revised edition, because you have a basic general idea of, it's what tier 3, or yes, tier 3 and tier 5 that you get the choice. So just add extra abilities or just use the flavor mechanic to allow people to pick second abilities if you were, to choose from.
Yeah, 3 and 6, not 3 and 5.
Oh yeah, 3 and 6.
Yeah, so that was that, and that's again, the ability again with the system and how the character types are built, kind of to inspire you towards your path as far as being, a godling. And then we move to chapter 11, where we talk about character descriptors and foci.
Oh, hold on. You should just mention, Dean, that there's also quite a few abilities that are only in the Gods of the Fall book. Like, I believe battle management, like some of those, the domain abilities are all kind of unique to Gods of the Fall. So, if you think that you could replicate the Gods of the Fall universe with the CSR, you're going to be mistaken. I mean, you're going to be missing some of the cooler abilities that are only in this book. It's worth mentioning that.
Yeah, it would be, it's always good to have that book and, just kind of do your own errata to update it, using the revised edition of the CSR.
Yeah, there's quite a few abilities that are unique to Gods of the Fall that are only in this book.
Right. And that's the same thing we can talk about, like with the character descriptors and focus.
Yeah.
There was 6 new descriptors in this book: beneficent, chaotic, gluttonous, humble, lawful, and wary. And I think beneficent is the only one I've seen in any other. Beneficent and chaotic, I don't think I've seen.
No, lawful's in the CSR.
Oh, okay. I must have missed it, but yeah. So 3 of the 5, they also had 2 new species descriptors added in as well, which was the Sleen and the Terran. 4 new foci came in this book, which were finds the flaw in all things, revels in trickery, speaks curses, and walks in the night, which were all really cool as far as foci are concerned. The nice thing, again, where we talk about using the revised edition of the CSR and the way it's set up, it would be so
easy. Hold on, Dean, before you zoom past everything. Gluttonous is freaking sweet. Did you read Gluttonous?
Oh, yeah. No, I was gonna let you talk about it. I was just saying, I wasn't running away from the chapter. I just was saying that with the new CSR, you can literally take these foci and be inspired to make even more foci to work with your gods. But yeah, gluttonous is like crazy.
Yeah, I don't know why I've never used gluttonous. First of all, you're trained in persuasion, you're trained in tasks related to exchange money, including haggling. You're trained in stealth tasks directly related to theft. You're specialized in eating and keeping down copious amounts of food and drink, which also counts as being trained in resisting the effects of poison.
Yeah.
Years of overdoing it has taken your inability your inability in might defense. But this is a really cool descriptor.
Yeah, I mean it is. I think it's cool. Humble is another one. All these are like pretty solid for descriptors. I think they're very much something you would want to use in your book. We were talking on the server earlier, a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the Sleen being used in like a Land of the Lost style adventure and stuff like that. Sleen are really pretty cool lizard men. I like them, you know, more than I like the lizard men from anything else. So.
And you could play one, which is cool.
Right. You know, I mean, just to give people an idea out there, you know, Selena Revere, they have they get a bonus to the intellect pool. They live 500 years. They're trained in tasks, you know, related to casting spells, stealth, or any 3 knowledge skills. They have an inability in might tasks. But dude, that's a hell of a race to play. You get some pretty hardcore abilities live there, you know, in there.
You know, I never actually ran it, but I was writing a one shot where it was like a G.I. Joe one shot I was doing. And I know this is a stupid idea, but at the time I was thinking it would be cool that Cobra Commander had this gas that turned people into
Sleens,
into snakes. And I was using Sleen as the, okay, here's your race descriptor now.
Nice.
I never ran it though, but that was the idea I had back in the day.
Well, now we know we got to do the G.I. Joe one shot.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the concept I had back in the day.
And the Terran are like basically, they're like, you know, hill giants. You know, you get to play a 7 to 9 foot tall humanoid, you know, which is kind of cool. They're, you know, they're most of the time warriors or hunters, you know, might bonus. They have better senses in the dark. They're trained in might defense, trained in perception tasks. You know, of course, you know, they got an inability in all intellect tasks. Doesn't mean they're stupid, just means it's harder for them, but or they might be slow to process information or whatever the case may be. But both race descriptors are solid, completely solid, which is, like I said, another cool aspect. You know,
once again, too, they break it down how because everything revolves around the 7 prophecies and what descriptors work best with the 7 prophecies, which is, you know, it helps you with your decision making. They do the same thing with the races.
Right.
I like the giant character, the Terran.
Oh yeah, the Terran are awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and then from there it moves right into the foci, you know, the thing that everybody wants to talk about, of course, you know, and you know, they give you a list of foci from the original CSR that they, you know, could be appropriate for your god types, plus the 4 new ones.
I think it's important that we say this because this actually came up. I know it has nothing to do with the walkthrough, but it came up the other day on the server. When you want to play, me and actually D were talking about this offline today, right? But when you want to play, whether it's a written setting, a traditional setting that's written by MCG, or something that you're just making the hell up yourself, right? One of the things you should do to help not only yourself, but your players so they have an idea is just quickly write a list of pre-approved foci that you want to allow your players to choose from. And make it as, you know, as big of a list as you possibly can. But, you know, like just say 40 foci from all the different books, or 50 foci, right? Because it gives the player a better idea of, okay, I see what people are capable of in whatever world I'm trying to get them to play in. And it's in every CSR book, but it always amazes me when I suggest, hey, just limit the foci, when someone will give me an idea, hey, I want to run this style of game, and my reply is, okay, get a list of folk, I limit the folk, I have them choose from that. And I always get the pushback like, oh, I could do that? That's limiting. MCG does it in every one of their setting books.
And here's another thing. You can do whatever you want because it's your game, and it's not limited, and it's not taking anything away from players. Because
as a player, it helps you because it gives you an idea of what the characters are capable of.
Not just the idea of the characters, but it gives you an idea of the setting. It makes the setting make sense. In a lot of respects. I think a lot of people miss that aspect. I really do. I mean,
it's literally in every one of their setting books.
Yep. It's even in the toolkit books. In the toolkit books, they break it down. If you want to run this kind of setting, these are the foci you might want to look at. And if you run in this setting, this is the foci you want to look at. So these are things, Gods are absolutely right. Curate your foci. MC just says like 36 at most for each setting. So, but there you go.
All right, so you want to go over at least a couple of the new foci that's in there? How many?
Well, yeah, since Gods have brought up finds the flaw in everything, and looking at the picture said he loved that picture, which is kind of awesome. Basically finds the flaw in everything and all things is you see the weak points in objects, people, even the way they think, the way they plan. You can find the flaw in their conversation, their dreams. This is a solid, crazy foci. And if played right, you can have so much fun with it. You just have to, like we always say, think outside the box, one of the cool parts about it is it literally gives you an ability right off the back. If you swap one of your type abilities, you can take the ability called Find a Flaw. And basically, if a character or thing has a straightforward weakness, like say they take extra damage from fire, or they have one eye, but they got a glass eye, you basically can figure out what it is. The GM will tell you what it is.
Is Find the Flaw anywhere else, Dean?
Yeah, it's in the new CSR now.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
It's in the new CSR now. But
you know what my favorite thing on Find the Flaw is? The tier 5 ability, the Flaw of Mortal Flesh. You recognize where flesh fails, and with a certain attack, you strike a foe at a vital spot. If the target is 3 levels or lower, it's killed outright. That's actually a really cool.
Right. And that's crazy. For each 2 levels of effort you spend, you can increase the maximum level of the target by 1. That's like, that's a hell of an ability, but
and it's 6 intellect points.
Yep. And like I said, if you take like this, if you also have like Sharp Eye Descriptor, is associated with Find a Flaw, you have an asset on the first action you take against the target, when you would decide to exploit a straightforward weakness. That's freaking awesome. So basically you're getting a free level of effort, you're getting an asset on your roll of, which is, that's crazy, They
also have Revels and Trickery, which is basically Loki. I think every game of Gods of the Fall I've ever run, someone has chosen this. Everybody loves the Loki style character.
Yeah.
Hero.
Yeah, but the one that I've played the most from this book is Walks with the Night. I think, I think that's just such a cool, it's just cool. You know what? You always have, I think characters who have darkness powers and stuff like that are so underrated. Many people don't, see the benefit, but.
Oh, Dean, not to cut you off. Remember yesterday, like 2 weeks ago, I was asking you to help me make a Black Cat character?
Yep.
Speaks curses.
Yeah, it speaks curses. Yeah. Yeah. We did. Yeah. Easy. That's it. You're right. Oh my God. That's perfect.
We were looking for, instead of curses, we'll reflavor it to hexes.
Yep. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, because you could really just do it's just a couple of little things
Yeah,
that you need
speech
to do.
curses is crazy. You are definitely right, Godzilla gave it. Yo, tier 3, you curse a creature within short range, erasing its mouth. Its mouth does not return until it inflicts damage on you.
Yes. Or how about the curse of disability? Oh yeah, the target speed is halved. The
Yeah,
difficulty.
that's very Black Cat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We like talking about superheroes thing, but it was funny. We were literally trying to find a foci that we could use to reflavor for Black Cat, and neither one of us thought to look at Gods of the Fall.
And see, like this one, but I was talking about walks with shadow, because remember that was what my character was. I was a champion who walked with the knight in Anthony's game, and I loved it because you could create a shadow. You know, you basically cause shadows to spring up within a short distance for up to 1 minute. You know, and it's just like cool. You control them shadows. And remember, we kind of reflavored it, and it's like I could grab the person's shadow and make it do stuff. It was great. This is one of my favorite foci, you know, even though it's, you know, first generation.
So it's total 4 foci, and this is my complaint in every of the early Cypher books. I always wanted more foci, but I don't think that's necessarily an MCG issue. I think that's a personal issue because I could read foci all day. So I always wanted more than 4. And I think the earlier ones, they usually only gave you 4 or 5 foci to begin with.
Yeah. Well, they heard us and changed that.
Yeah. But like all the foci in here are really cool. I just wanted more.
Oh, absolutely. You know, absolutely. That's that.
Yeah, there's only 4 in here.
That's why remember, if you remember, that's what happened with Unmasked. We wanted more than like what the 3 or 4 that they gave us, so I had to go write 10 more. So,
all right, at chapter 10, this is what kind of makes you
chapter 12.
I mean, chapter 12. This is what kind of makes it supers in a fantasy setting, because your character's dominion is, you know, like basically it's like your origin of your godhood, like who you getting the spark from. And it also adds, you know, obligations and dominions. Obligations is like, it's like, what's the best way to describe it? Like it's,
Dominion, just like, you know, is whatever you are the god of. Are you the god of night? Are you the god of the sun? Are you the god of lies? And so on and so, you know, that's what that really is.
But the obligation is what you call it, how your abilities manifest.
How it manifests, you're right.
Yeah. And it's basically like a scale, like your dominion tiers up along with your character, because you choose a dominion at what, tier 2?
Tier 2.
You choose a dominion at tier 1, but you don't start getting dominion abilities to tier 2. I believe that's how it works.
Right. You know,
you choose a symbol at tier 2 and you get an obligation.
Right. So basically it says starting at first tier, your PC's awakened and must, you know, have certain divine obligations to unlock your dominion. So you get your obligation at tier 1, but you don't get your first dominion ability till tier 2.
Yeah. And then also you have to reach certain, you have to like, they call labors, but you have to actually tier up. It's like a whole separate leveling system for, you know, for these additional abilities. There's like criteria you have to meet called labors.
If you think about it, it's like the 12 labors of Hercules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the 12 trials, or if you will. So these are basically to prove your worthiness, which is another cool thing because it's built right into the game itself.
And you have a choice. You can either roll on a chart and choose it, or you could just flat out choose it yourself.
Correct. You know. Then, of course, you choose your dominion, or again, there's a chart to roll on. They literally have, you know, what is this? So what is that, about 40 different dominions to choose from? And this list, this is just what's here. This is not the exhaustive list. If you come up with something that's not on here, like I said, I had somebody, you know, have dominion over mythological noble monsters. You know, those noble monsters is what they told what their dominion was. So that kind of thing came about.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've run Gods of the Fall.
It's been a while since I have too.
What you call it, I'm looking at this. There's a lot of stuff in here that I didn't entirely remember, but this is all cool as shit.
Right, and it also gives you a listing of symbols. So your god, you know, all gods are associated with symbol of some sort, you know.
Yeah.
So you can actually do that as well. You know, there's a random chart for you to roll on to figure that out, or of course choose your own. What I kind of like it too is that there's charts for you to roll on for these things, or you can choose your labors. You know, you choose your first labor, or of course you can roll it randomly. And again, it just depends on how you as the GM want to run it.
So essentially is you get your power shifts, right? But they call divine shifts through these different tiers. And normally, like how the Cypher system deals with power shifts, but this system calls it divine shifts, but they're essentially the same exact thing, right? You get, or you'll decide at the beginning of the game, hey, this is a 3 power shift game, 3 power shift supers game, you get 3 shifts. In Gods of the Fall, you have to earn those shifts. And by, you know, at each tier, you'll get an additional shift, which gives you
at tier 2, you get 3.
Yeah.
And then
you get
then
the
after
rest.
that, you earn 1 per tier.
Yeah. But you actually have to meet a criteria in order to get
Correct.
it. Not just leveling up your character. You actually have to level up your what are they called here? You have to level up your dogma, I believe.
Yeah, your dogma. You have to achieve your dogma, and basically it's your obligations. You know, it's basically your character's philosophy and how that philosophy relates to and it's how your philosophy relates to your dominion. You know, and it's just basically a collection of your core tenets that your character strives to live by. You know, if you understand that whole concept of dogma, you know, that's with, you know, any religious ideology out there, you know.
Yeah, so essentially they just call them dominion benefits, and you get a divine shift, which is essentially a power shift.
Oh, we were talking about that earlier, Gonza, as far as looking at updating the divine shifts to be more in line with how power shifts work from Claim the Sky. Yeah, so of course, absolutely, that's there. You know, characters can pick up flying and stuff like that a whole lot easier, and especially in this kind of adventures, it would make perfect sense to allow that to happen. You know, and also like Savant, I think that would be great to have, especially if you want to play a god of knowledge or intellect or something like that. It would just make perfect sense for that to be available to them.
And now, remember we said you tier up your dominion abilities. Now there's a whole list of tier dominion abilities, and you know that you could choose from, and they got a whole bunch of really cool ones here. Like I'll choose one of the tier 1 abilities, self-aware. You know, where someone speaks your name somewhere in the afterworld for the next day and the general direction, the distance of that location. You can succeed on the intellected tasks whose difficulty is equal to the level of the speaker. You can apply a level of effort to gain vision of whoever spoke your name and the speaker's surroundings within short range. It's only an action to initiate. That is freaking cool. So someone's like, I could be in New York and someone in California said my name and I could
You'll hear
find out their location and hear it.
Exactly.
And I misspoke. You get the Dominion ability plus your Divine Shift.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't hear you say that it was one or the other. Yeah, you get them both. Yep.
You get them both.
So, you know, and here's something else that, you know, as these games move forward, so these are things that you should look at, you know, through, again, that outside the box lens, if you will, because your power shifts, again, you know, they even tell you that here, they tell you that in I would actually bring in the idea of power stats and call them, you know, divine abilities or something, or, you know, divine tricks, because I think it all fits. It fits, like we were saying from the beginning, that this was like a like superheroes in fantasy.
Oh, you know what? If you wanted, you could even adopt this concept if you wanted to do the mega paragon superheroes and build a separate, instead of a Dominion list, we'll call it Paragon list.
Or the cosmic heroes. The cosmic heroes. Think characters like the Silver Surfer and you know, so on and so forth. You know,
as they tiered up and accomplished whatever their hero chart we would choose, they would go to the you know, to this chart and pick out an ability from this. So you could build those Galactus style characters, those Terex the Untamed.
Yeah, Terex the Destroyer. JMX Runner, yeah, that is actually a good term. Piety. Perfect term. So yeah.
Think about how cool this is.
Yeah, I know it's been a minute since
you know what it is? I rarely was a player in Gods of the Fall.
All right, well, challenge accepted. You know, we'll get something together, and you know, you get to play this time.
Yeah, and you got so much. You know what I think what separates this from a lot of the other MCG settings is that this has a lot more character options to really craft your characters uniquely. Because not only between descriptor, foci, and type, right? You have this, these are more choices to be added. And then you still have your choices from the power shifts, from your divine shifts. So this gives you a lot of options for, you know, unique optimization.
You know, and here's some interesting things too, just to give you guys ideas of how cool this is. You know, like tier 2 Dominion abilities that are available to you, like steal name. Literally, you can steal a person's name or the object. You know, and basically you have SX on task involving that person or object for 1 hour. You know, if you decide to steal the name of a living creature within short range, you know, and you basically steal it right from your thoughts, that creature will cease to take actions, you know, as it attempts to recall its own name for as long as you use the action each round and concentrate on hiding their name from them. You know, it's pretty cool. It's just so many cool little aspects to stuff you can do within this setting, and you know, the tools that are given.
The chapter 13, we're running a little long here. Chapter 13 is the equipment list. I think this equipment list was actually pretty good. It's not as good as God's Forsaken, and I think even if you're running this and you want a fantasy equipment list, I would just recommend that. I know everyone can't be spoiled like we are, that we have all the books, but if you do have the opportunity to pick up both books, I will say that the God Forsaken equipment list is better than this one, but this one is still good and it's totally adequate if you want to run a game.
What's cool about this one though, it does give you a lot of specific ideas, you know, like, you know, talks about materials for stuff to be made out of and so on and so forth, which is really cool. Price categories, you know, so on and so forth. But like Anthony was saying, the God Forsaken list is far more extensive than this one.
I mean, there's a lot of the same stuff in here. It's just you get on the God Forsaken on.
And then, of course, we move into the part 4, which is the GM's Toolkit or GM's Toolbox. This section basically has monsters, or creatures and NPCs, ciphers and artifacts, any adventure at the end, the Rite of Spring, which, you know, I mean, the monsters and NPCs in this book are they're pretty solid. I mean, they've got
the monsters and NPCs in this book freaking kick ass.
Yes, they do.
I think he along with the setting, this is also where it really, really shines. I actually, for the tallest game I ran, I actually used quite a few of the monsters from in here. And I think a lot of the monsters that were originally printed in here made it over to a lot of the other books because they were freaking cool.
Right. So yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They got crazy different monsters. You know, some of the stuff is traditional that you're used to seeing, and other stuff is like, what in the hell is this? You know, their own unique takes on them. You know, like the Golden Bull. I think the Golden Bull is like really cool. It's a tier 6 monster. Level 6. I'm not tier 6.
I don't want to spoil anything, but the Hellmaw is something that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using pretty soon, and it's not a fantasy game.
Oh, the Hellmaw is nasty. The Night Wolf. I love the Night. I've used the Night Wolf on people before, which is crazy. You know, they got some traditional creatures in there, the Rakshasa, you know, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this was actually really good. I've been saying for day one, every time I hear people like, oh, it's going to be hard to run traditional fantasy and Cypher. I think that they have more than enough tools between the 3 books to run any freaking fantasy you want.
16 new ciphers are put in this book, and those ciphers are very, very cool, if I say so myself.
Yeah.
There's artifacts. You know, they talk about making artifacts, but there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13. So 15 artifacts, 15 new artifacts in here as well. And I can honestly say this adventure, I've run this adventure.
Oh, hold on a sec. Before you move on from the ciphers and artifacts, I will say it's worth mentioning that any setting that is on a higher power level than most, you always have to look at the artifacts and the ciphers through the lens of they might be slightly more powerful than you would in other games, because they meant to either attack high level creatures or affect high level PCs with a lot of abilities. So and a lot of the ciphers this is the first book that came out with ciphers that dealt directly with power shift style abilities. Like once again, they call them divine shifts, but the same concept. They manipulate what a power shift, what a divine shift could do. So a lot of games that use power shifts, you could use these ciphers and just replace the word divine shift with power shift.
Right. And literally, what all I wanted to say about that adventure is the fact that is a solid adventure. I've run it at least 20 times, probably more than that. I've run it at conventions. I've run it at game stores to introduce people to the setting. I love the adventure. It's I don't want to give anything away, but it can be run in about, depending on how you want to handle it, it can be run in as little as 2 hours, you know, but I've actually extended it up to 4. But, you know, just depending on how you move the game along, but it's set up that way for you to be able to expand parts or condense parts. I think the adventure is great. It's awesome. And it's a good place. dude, it's such a cool adventure because it's such an awesome place. If you were ever going to run a campaign, the way it's set up, you know, the conclusion to it, if the players succeed, the conclusion to it literally is the perfect jump off point for your entire campaign. It is that cool. I hands down one of the best adventures I've ever seen in the back of a book. You know, I dig it. I dig it a lot.
I never run the adventure. I use parts of it though. Like I don't know if it sounds familiar, but the idea from a well that I used in came from this adventure.
Yeah.
So it was inspired by this adventure, even though I never read it.
Well, like I said, I run the adventure, but again, you know, like I said, when I expanded it to 4 hours, I definitely, you know, had to, you know, throw my own stuff in there, but I had such a blast, then I was inspired to do it. So that was the cool part about it. So, I mean,
overall, I think, yeah, it's not meant, we didn't mean to like totally break down everything in the book, because at the end of the day, we want you to actually experience it and enjoy it yourself. We just want to do a brief overview of what you know, what do you get when and just so you can see the cool artwork, because like all MCG books, the artwork is always phenomenal. Right, the last chapter is basically the glossary, a full timeline, and of course the character sheets.
right. And and of course too, if you buy the book, you also get a nice poster map as well. I don't know, you know, that poster map is bomb. I'm just, you know, my wife and I are talking about buying a new house, so when I get my new place, I'm gonna have more wall space, so I can put all my maps up.
I still like the old style, the original character sheets, because I felt, maybe I could be wrong, maybe it's just me, but I felt like the old filling, I'm not talking about the form fillable ones, like the ones you handwrite, they seemed like there was more lines in the older sheets. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but for some reason the old, you know, like the whole first series of first series of MCG setting books, the character sheets just seemed like there was more room for you to write.
Yeah, I think so too. In JMX Runner, yes, there are so many adventures, and you know, somebody made mention about doing Greek mythology. Oh, absolutely, easily done, so easily done. You can do so much stuff with this setting. It's just crazy. Like I said, we said before, it inspires on a multicultural level, you know.
And of course we have Chris from Gods of Gaming on, and if you do not know, he provides a plethora of supplements you could get. This absolutely fabulous work. His Gods of the Fall stuff. We'll definitely post his links in the chat. Yeah, check out all his work with Gods of the Fall. He's a ton of adventures, a ton of stuff. Awesome work. Please go check out Gods of Gaming on Drive Through RPG, and I'm sure Al's posting the link. Yeah, he just posted the link.
And I don't know. I think also, just so you guys know, there's a magic system in there too, in that bundle that I wrote. So you can check that out too. But it's also on Drive Through RPG. So yeah, we've been inspired by Cypher system to do some work, you know, both in community content and as far as the gaming goes. So, you know, keep your eyes open. We'll probably be posting some adventures to come up, and anybody who's watching us tonight, definitely, you know, hit us up so we can get you in the game, you know, and we'll work some stuff out.
Like we said before, Gods of Fall is probably one of our favorite. I feel actually bad now because it's been a while since I've cracked open this book a lot for Tolis, but it was more to just rip out either monsters or scene ideas. But I'm actually gonna have to run me some more. Maybe I should run Children Should Play with Dead Things. I have it all set up on Roll20. I can run that game in my sleep. Just so we can have some people. Or we can even stream that. I don't think we've ever streamed Children.
We haven't. We've never streamed that one.
Yeah, that's
here's another
that needs to make a return.
You know what? I think what we should do, Anthony, you know, you just gave me gave me an idea. Maybe we should just like hit each one of the setting books, run a one shot, and each one of the toolkit books. You know, just start getting back out there. I mean, I know everybody's a little bit busy, been busy, you know, but things are getting ready to start slowing down.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. If you like us and you like what we do, join the Cypher Unlimited Discord server. It's the largest fan-run Discord server for all things Monte Cook Games. You know, you want to run games, play in games, talk about MCG games. We have channels for every setting, so please join. It'll be awesome. But if Discord's not for you, join our Facebook group. It's not as large as our Discord, but there's always great conversations being had. Please give us a follow or subscribe here on Twitch if you can. We'll really appreciate it. Or go to our YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe there. We desperately try to get to 1,000 members, 1,000 subs on YouTube. So we'll really appreciate it if you go over there and just give us a sub. Even if you freaking hate us, just go and sub and tell me every day how much you hate it. Hate our videos and hate us. I don't care. Just do it. We appreciate it either way. If you like, you want to support us in any way, go to our online store and pick up some cool Cypher Unlimited merch like me and Dean got on. Be the coolest kid on the block. And capes will be on there very soon. Or give us a little donation on Ko-fi. Our videos are always free, but it helps us out with little things like Zoom course. Last but not least, unless I forgot anything, Dean?
I think you hit them all.
Last but not least, we love you guys.
And with that being said, we here at Cypher Unlimited.
I was going to come hop on. I thought he was.
Oh.
I was going to wait for y'all to do the actual sign off, but I guess I'll sign off for everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Yeah, but from us at the CU, we will see you later. Take care.